This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The last of the major World War II leaders, Emperor Hirohito of Japan, died today. He was 87. His son immediately assumed the throne of the world's oldest imperial line. The imperial palace said Hirohito died of intestinal cancer. He had been critically ill for several months, and the end was not unexpected. From Tokyo, Richard Wagner reports.
Political leaders and members of the imperial family rushed to the palace in the pre-dawn hours of Saturday morning as word spread that Hirohito was near death. Then finally came the announcement the Emperor of Japan had died. Many citizens of Tokyo were at the palace praying for the well-being of their emperor. Although Japan had been on a prolonged death watch, the end of Hirohito's 63-year reign still came as a shock. To many, there was a sense of history in the making, not felt since the end of World War II. Hirohito's illness had touched off an outpouring of national sentiment and emotion, emotions not expressed for years. For many in Japan, the emperor's landmark life was their own, through war, nuclear holocaust, defeat, and ultimately, prosperity. His illness had caused a lengthy period of uncertainty. Printers suspended work on new calendars and official documents. A new emperor would mean year one of a new era. There were widespread cancellations of concerts, parties, and festivals. Stock market activity slowed. It was thought improper to seek profits at such a time. But as the weeks passed and the emperor's condition changed little, many asked whether Japan was overreacting. Some normal activity resumed. There was public debate about the role of the imperial family, and even whether it was necessary. The new emperor, former Crown Prince Akihito, has said he would like the imperial family to be closer to the people. But the likelihood is that there will be little change. Hirohito's death not only ends an era in Japan, but a chapter in its place in the world. For many here, the Second World War is now indeed history. Richard Wagner, CBS News, Tokyo.
In this country, the first criminal indictments and guilty pleas today in the still unfolding investigation of U.S. defense contract criminal corruption inside and outside the Pentagon. CBS News law correspondent Rita Braver begins our coverage of today's 86-page indictment naming names on charges of cheating taxpayer defense dollars.
Teledyne Industries, a California electronics manufacturer, became the first company indicted in the Justice Department's long-running investigation of Pentagon fraud, known as Operation Ill Wind. 3 company executives were indicted too. Another pleaded guilty. A guilty plea also by the Hazeltine Corporation, a New York communications maker, and 2 of its executives.
It's a conspiracy, first of all, to bribe public officials, and secondly, to defraud the United States of America.
According to papers filed today, both companies bought inside information from this man, Stuart Berlin, a key Pentagon official involved in selecting certain communications equipment to be used by the Navy's Space and Naval Warfare Systems Command. Berlin was indicted also, along with 2 consultants, one from California, one from the Washington area, who allegedly bribed him on behalf of both Hazeltine and Teledyne. The indictment said one of the consultants allegedly pushed for more payoff money from Teledyne, saying, "It takes a lot of spaghetti and meatballs to grease the skids on some of these things." The Justice Department says that sale of inside details corrupts the entire military procurement process.
If you're privy to the information that your competitors submit in the bidding process, when you submit your best and final offer, it allows you to tailor your submission accordingly, and it gives you a decided advantage.
Hazeltine has agreed to pay fines and damages of almost $2 million. If convicted, Teledyne could face $6 million in fines. But insiders say this is just the first wave of the huge probe that began last summer. More indictments and plea bargains are expected within the next few months. The FBI says cleaning up the Pentagon is a top priority matter.
The Department of Defense spends an estimated $620 million every day, every weekend, every holiday. They have 6.3 million employees.
As for questions that have been raised about whether any members of Congress have been involved in defense fraud, one key source said that part of the investigation is still in an embryonic state. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
The charges here, as you can see from the penalties that are at issue and the charges that have been framed in the indictment, are very significant.
But how significant? The contracts involve test kits for an electronic system aboard Navy aircraft that enables ships to tell whether an incoming plane is friend or foe. Just one of countless pieces of equipment needed to keep a carrier battle group in operation. The contracts are small, tens of millions of dollars in a defense budget of hundreds of billions of dollars. And the indictments cover only the tiniest fraction of the military-industrial complex.
Thus far, there's only been 6 people out of over 3 million people that are employed and work and make honest, put in an honest day's work and make very quality products.
Contractors, consultants, and government employees have been indicted because they allegedly broke the law by rigging contracts. But were there any victims? Was the taxpayer bilked? Was national security damaged?
The most obvious and clear-cut case is, you would say, that the taxpayer are paying more for the defense than they should be. They also might be paying for a defense that is less efficient and less good than they otherwise would have gotten.
The real damage is to the confidence that the American people and their elected representatives must have in the integrity of the procurement system. Because we ask the American people to spend large sums of money on very sophisticated weapon systems, and they have to really feel that they're getting the most for their dollar.
If the public thinks its money is being wasted on fraudulent defense contracts, it will refuse to invest in the next generation of weapons. And that could have a real impact on national security. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, correspondent Bob Fall with the story of a football player whose career has left 4 colleges in trouble. And 60 Minutes co-editor and correspondent Mike Wallace on Emperor Hirohito and his unique place in history.
I don't care what they're calling this new strain of flu. I still feel the same old way. Awful. Got 102 temperature, and my body aches. But I don't take aspirin or Tylenol anymore. Today my choice is Advil. You see, Advil has a non-prescription strength of the medicine in the prescription brand Motrin. Doctors have already recommended Advil over 20 million times for so many types of pain. Advil reduces my fever and relieves my body aches. And that's all the help I need.
Advil. Look for a special Advil coupon in Sunday's paper.
Introducing Total Raisin Bran. Other raisin brands have only 1/4 as much vitamin nutrition, and eating a raisin bran with only 1/4 the vitamin nutrition you could get is like having Mount Rushmore with only one president. New Total Raisin Bran has 100% of 11 vitamins and minerals, so try new Total Raisin Bran.
A letter for me?
And look in this week's mail for this $1 coupon.
How fast does Dristan nasal spray start to work?
Faster than Dolly can pick up a $5 tip.
Dristan works fast to relieve nasal congestion, even sinus pressure. For relief,
Faster than a frog on a hot rock.
try Dristan nasal spray. It's faster than...
Got a nice minty taste to it.
That's good.
Can you say that about your liquid antacid? If not, taste new Tums Liquid.
It has a nice taste to it. It's delicious. Tums tastes the best.
New Tums Liquid. It works, and it really tastes good.
The trouble between the United States and Libya moved to the United Nations today. Correspondent Richard Roth has our report.
A chorus from the Third World condemned the U.S., Nicaragua's delegate calling the shoot-down of Libyan jets an act of state terrorism. U.S. envoy Vernon Walters was scornful.
The United States is not really disposed to receive lessons on terrorism from a nation like Sandinista Nicaragua.
And Walters brought photos to back up the claim that Libya's MiGs were armed and dangerous. Blurry black and whites from a camera in one of the American jets, which Walters said clearly showed missile pods, disproving Libya's assertion its planes were unarmed.
Well, what do you think this is? Bouquet of flowers hanging under the wing?
Libya's ambassador saw the pictures and heard the tape released yesterday, but said they meant nothing.
That these photos and that radio tape is fake. Fake. In fact, it's very well edited, and thanks to the producer and to the director and to the actors.
Libya wants the Security Council to condemn the U.S. military action, though America's veto power makes that formality impossible. U.S. allies, silent so far, may speak next week. Richard Roth, CBS News, New York.
Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze today called the U.S.-Libyan battle over the Mediterranean, and I quote, unacceptable. He charged that the United States has poisoned the atmosphere for this weekend's chemical warfare conference in Paris. Our State Department correspondent Wyatt Andrews is in Paris.
Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze said he's ready to hear the American evidence that Libya is building a chemical weapons factory. The U.S. said today Shevardnadze would get an unusual briefing from Secretary of State Schultz in a meeting set for Sunday. Schultz spent much of his day keeping the heat on Libya.
Everyone is concerned, everyone is, about any emerging chemical weapons capability.
A top aide to Schultz said Egypt, Canada, and the French now believe the American case against Gaddafi's factory. The French would not say that in public, but Canada's Joe Clark did.
We're not skeptical. We believe that the capacity is there to produce chemical weapons.
The Libyan foreign minister arrived today ready to answer the Americans. His strategy, a straight denial.
We have not the intention for producing any chemical weapons.
While this conference will have an important discussion of a 64-year-old ban on chemical weapons, that's about all that can be said. The conference will not punish Iraq for actually using chemical weapons. Libya is not on the formal agenda. In fact, when the conference begins tomorrow, there is a gentleman's agreement not to point fingers or name names. The diplomatic niceties might help Iraq, but they also protect the U.S., the Soviets, and the French from the embarrassing question of why they keep such large chemical stockpiles, only to claim no one else should. This don't point any fingers policy that goes into effect tomorrow was necessary, experts say, because none of the major powers that help push for this conference is arriving with perfectly clean hands. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Paris.
In India today, 2 men of the Sikh religion were hanged for the 1984 assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Sikh radicals are now vowing revenge for those executions.
Come on, Tyler. Hurry up, boy. Come on, Tyler.
When it's cold and rough outside,
Come on, Tyler.
try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal or instant mix and eat. Their smooth texture always lets the taste come through.
Again?
2 warm ways to come in from the cold.
If you love lots of shrimp, Red Lobster is going to make you very happy. Introducing the Shrimp Spectacular Platter, just $7.95. 4 ways to love shrimp, all on one plate. Crispy fried, spicy Cajun popcorn, zesty lemon pepper, and announcing our delicious new grilled shrimp. That's our Shrimp Spectacular Platter, just $7.95. Kid shrimp, $1.95. It's spectacular, now at Red Lobster. And for all your football parties, call for Party Platters to go, ready in just 1 hour.
Some drinks are only 10% fruit juice, so it's like getting this much fruit in every glass. But Juicy Juice from Libby's is 100% fruit juice, so it's like getting this much fruit in every glass.
Juicy Juice is a juicier juice.
When your coffee's rich enough for all working day long, and it tastes your way, it's necessarily Nescafe.
Great coffee blends to taste your way. That's necessarily Nescafe.
As he starts his final 2 weeks in office, President Ronald Reagan sat for an interview today with CBS News 60 Minutes correspondent and co-editor Mike Wallace. Among other things, Mike Wallace asked President Reagan about increased tensions with Libya, the fallout from Wednesday's high noon confrontation over the Mediterranean, in which the 2 U.S. jets shot down 2 Libyan fighters, and about U.S. charges that Libya is about to start up a chemical weapons plant.
You've so far refused, Mr. President, to rule out the possibility of an attack on that chemical plant in Libya. Is that still the case?
Well, I know that they've translated that into something that we may be considering. I didn't mean it that way. I simply meant in answering the question when they came that incidents of this kind, there's no way you can discuss anything that you might be considering in response to something like that has been done.
So that wasn't in the back of your head at that time?
No.
Final question. The Soviet Union has called the F-14 shooting down of those 2 Libyan MiGs state terrorism that could have serious consequences. And that is the toughest talk to come out of the Soviet Union about the United States in a long, long time.
Yes, it didn't come from Gorbachev, but maybe the individual who did it didn't understand. That was self-defense, and now it's proven by film of the planes in the air that their planes were not disarmed. Their planes were carrying weapons, the missiles and so forth, and they were the ones that when our pilots changed the direction, altitude, and so forth, they followed every time trying to, as we know, to shoot those missiles that you have to be fastened onto the other. And finally, it was so apparent that it was hostile that you don't wait for them to push the button because then you die.
So that statement doesn't make for any tension or abrasion between you and President Gorbachev.
No, I fully support the decision of the pilot.
More of the Ronald Reagan interview session with Mike Wallace will be broadcast on 60 Minutes a week from this Sunday. President Reagan checked into Walter Reed Army Hospital this evening for surgery on his left hand tomorrow morning. The surgery is to correct Mr. Reagan's loss of full control over his left ring finger. The procedure, we're told, will not require any general anesthetic, and the White House emphasizes does not require any temporary transfer of power to Vice President George Bush. Defense Secretary-designate John Tower is recuperating in a Dallas hospital tonight after bowel surgery. Doctors at Baylor University Hospital say Tower had a cancerous polyp removed December 27th. Another polyp was removed yesterday and appears benign. Doctors said Tower is expected to make a full recovery. The nation's civilian unemployment rate dropped to a 14-year low again last month. It was down 0.1 of a percentage point to 5.3%. That's back to where it was in October, the lowest unemployment rate since May of 1974.
Susan, can we talk?
Sure, Dad.
You notice anything different about Mom?
She's acting pretty wild for her age.
Well, I don't just mean the roller skates.
And the motor scooter. She even borrowed my new dress. Come on, Dad, what is it?
A balanced diet with the right vitamin nutrition helps people get more out of life. Some are finding Kellogg's Product 19. 100% of 12 vitamins and minerals. Feel good about yourself.
Not the, rubber dress.
Feel like 19 again.
I remember when I was a young man, my father telling me about the Yakima Indians. Their culture and history were one of America's greatest glories. Well, now I got the time to see it for myself. Of course, affording it's another matter. I wasn't sure I could make it, but AARP helped with discounts on hotels, motels, even the car I rented. So here I am. And you know what? My father was right.
AARP, making a difference.
Why do you care what I eat for breakfast?
Maybe we shouldn't discuss this while you're under the influence of sugar and preservatives.
And what should I be influenced by? Nuts and twigs?
Kellogg's Nutri-Grain cereal with no sugar added and no preservatives.
This is much better than I thought.
Yeah, kind of like me.
Dedicated to the ones we love.
Now, try the deliciously different taste of Nutri-Grain biscuits, the only shredded wheat with no preservatives.
The NCAA put Oklahoma State University's football program on probation for 4 years today. As correspondent Bob Fall reports, it was a wide receiver who burned Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State wide receiver Hartley Dykes might be one of America's best football players. He certainly has caused the most damage.
Pass complete to Hartley Dykes.
With today's action based substantially on information provided by Dykes himself, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Illinois, and Texas A&M have now been put on NCAA probation for breaking recruiting rules to sign the All-American. In the history of college sports, no one player has ever brought down 4 schools before.
Who can put a dollar amount on that? It's going to be astronomical, the damage that has been done.
While Oklahoma State's president seemed embarrassed by the penalties, the team's football coach seemed almost relieved.
The heart of this football program was not cut out. But honestly, I was surprised good a little bit.
The question in all this is how often are the rules broken in bidding wars for superstars like Hartley Dykes?
When I was coaching, I thought there were probably 10 to 15% of the coaches that are willing to compromise the rules and cheat. Now I think that probably that number is 25 to 30%.
Who's to blame? Coaches driven to cheat by the win-at-all-cost pressure of big-time college sports? Or players like Dykes, who the NCAA says got $5,000 and a Mercedes?
Any young man, is offered a car or offered something, I imagine he'd be tempted to take. If someone handed him some money, I don't think he'd throw it down.
Worried about NCAA sanctions, which could cost schools millions, universities insist they're trying to clean up. Here at North Carolina State, coaches are now being told that graduating their athletes and playing by the rules matter more than winning or losing. Reduce the pressure to win, says the school's athletic director, and you reduce the temptation to cheat.
I mean, time out. Stop. We've got to take a good look at this thing. There's got to be a better way.
Until it's found, coaches agree wheeler-dealers in their ranks will keep bending the rules, and the NCAA will keep getting criticized for having an upside-down sense of justice, for giving Hartley Dykes immunity to find out what he knew.
You can tell the NCAA gets serious about taking athletes' eligibility away, hammering them as well as an institution. We are not going to see a slowdown in the number of athletes that have their hands out.
As for the object of everyone's affection, Hartley Dykes, he's now getting ready to sign a big pro contract. Today, practicing for a bowl game in Hawaii, Dykes said he was just too busy to talk about the scandal. Bob Fall, CBS News, Stillwater, Oklahoma.
New trouble at the Savannah River Defense Plant, the only source for a key ingredient needed for U.S. nuclear warheads. Officials today reported finding 24 cracks in reactor cooling system pipes. All 3 Savannah River reactors are shut down already for safety reasons. Privately, officials now say it may take until sometime next year to get even one reactor back online.
When we go on vacation, I take a bottle with me. If his back acts up, I know Metaprin's definitely going to work.
I'm a 5th grade teacher, which means big headaches, which means Metaprin.
Sometimes I wake up with bad headaches. I keep Metaprin right next to the bed.
Metaprin's made for tough pain because it's made with ibuprofen, the same medicine as in Motrin, and nothing's proven faster.
Metaprin takes the pain away fast. What more can you ask for?
Metaprin really works.
Nothing worked for me before Metaprin. Nothing.
When the pain gets tough, get Metaprin.
You know, the other day my MCI rep called me up. Says he'd like to stop by with some new ideas. I think my long distance gets complicated again. Then he shows me how I've outgrown my current MCI service. And with a couple of changes, I can have more efficient, more economical long distance. I couldn't believe it. This MCI guy called me up to lower the bill.
Until you call, you'll never know how much better a long distance company can be. MCI. Let us show you.
If having oatmeal for breakfast gets a little boring, wake it up with Grape Nut cereal. Mix them up, then cook them up. Rev up the texture, turn up the flavor. Oomph up your oatmeal with Post Grape Nut cereal.
Gas pain, bloating. Gas-X has the strongest, fastest relief ingredient. Painful gas is like beer bubbles. Add the leading antacid. Add Gas-X. Only Gas-X gets rid of the gas. The strongest, fastest reliever for gas pain and bloating. Gas-X.
At the time of his death today, Japan's Emperor Hirohito was the world's longest reigning monarch. He spent most of his time in recent years behind the walls of the imperial palace. But until the Japanese defeat in World War II, Hirohito was, by the Japanese standard, divine in status. 60 Minutes correspondent Mike Wallace reported on that part of the emperor's reign a quarter of a century ago in his series called Biography.
He once had a personal fortune so vast it could never be counted. His clothes could never be fitted because he was too exalted to be touched by human hands. Tradition dictated that a royal prince was the son of God. By law, his subjects were forbidden to look upon him. 1928. A Amid the glittering pageantry so dear to the heart of his people, Prince Hirohito, direct descendant of a line unbroken for ages, is crowned the 124th Emperor of Japan. Now, by imperial edict, he must assume the status of the god who walks among men. His subjects believe that to look upon him is to be blinded. To touch him means death. Hirohito is Japan. Though he holds enormous power, by custom he must delegate authority to his ministers and military staff. His military leaders have effectively relegated Hirohito to the status of figurehead. He cannot find the means to stop his cabinet or his army from carrying out their plans. Sunday, December 7th, the Japanese task force is 200 miles off the coast of Hawaii. Within hours, Emperor Hirohito and the Japanese people will be informed that the Imperial Air Force has attacked Pearl Harbor, that their nation has been thrust into global war. Every victory is celebrated in the name of the Emperor. Every conquest is dedicated to Hirohito. March 1945. In a single raid, American B-29s rained 4,000 tons of bombs on the capital city, igniting 20 square miles of Tokyo. Long an advocate of peace, the Emperor seeks a way through diplomatic channels to bring an honorable end to the conflict. But his efforts come too late. August 6, 1945, Hiroshima. On August 16th, Hirohito addresses his people, telling them they must accept defeat. Then, Emperor Hirohito becomes the center of world controversy, as many demand his death for not trying to halt the war, for not using his divine influence to sway the people. The Allied powers decide, however, that now his influence can be properly used in the cause of peace. The Emperor of Japan comes from behind the imperial chrysanthemum curtain to walk among his people, not in a military uniform, not as a god, but in civilian clothes as a human being. The people are now told that they may look upon their emperor without fear of being blinded. They may touch him without fear of death. As a constitutional monarch, Emperor Hirohito has now become the symbol of peace and stability for the new Japan. Although his people have lost a god, they are deeply devoted to the man. General MacArthur took away many traditions and gave us Western rules, a Japanese educator explains. But he left us our father. Every child must have a father.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. Bob Schieffer will be here tomorrow. We'll see you here again Monday. Good night, everybody.
This is CBS.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Clark, and coming up next on Eyewitness News, a TBI investigation prompts the sheriff of Warren County to resign, even though some say he's done nothing wrong. In Lawrence County, law officers go door to door rounding up suspected drug dealers, and some strange laws on the books in Tennessee, everything from banana peels to pigs. We'll have those stories, and something besides your clothes may be in your washing machine. Details coming up next on Eyewitness News.
On the next win, lose, or draw.
Don't everybody jump in here.